Welcome to the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your employees all the information they need to be successful at their jobs. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, host of the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your staff everything they need to be successful at their job. Past guests include David Allen of Getting Things Done, Michael Gerber of the E-Myth, and many more, so check out other episodes. This episode, before I get to today's guest, who is basically all about getting things done for you. So this episode is brought to you by Sweet Process. If you've had team members ask you the same questions over and over and over again, Tamara, you don't experience any of that with what you do, right?
Never.
And it's the 10th time you spent explaining it. There is a better way. Sweet Process is a software that makes it drop dead easy to train and onboard new staff and save time with existing staff. When I was talking to Owen, he told me not only do universities, banks, hospitals, software companies use them, but first responder government agencies use them in life or death situations. I'm like, Owen, that's something we should tell people. That's pretty cool. People use Sweet Process to document all the repetitive tasks that eat up your precious time, so you can focus on growing your team. You can sign up. It's a 14-day free trial. No credit card required. Sweetprocess.com. Sweet like candy. SWEET process.com. Now, I'm excited to introduce today's guest. Tamara Kemper is the founder of the Process Mavens, where she helps CEOs get their time back by helping them delegate the day-to-day work that they're stuck in. I feel like, Tamara, that's every CEO, like we know. And, after 16 years of leadership and classroom experience in both public education ed tech companies, she accidentally became an expert in getting things done, because you have to be organized to do those things. And she quickly learns how your business works. She helps you get organized using simple online tools and teaches you how to keep it that way. And she's got a lot of different clients, CEOs, some are educators turned entrepreneurs. So, Tamara, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. I'm happy to be here.
There's so many places to start. And one we will get to, which is interesting enough, where you talk about core values, okay? And the importance of starting with your core values to design and improve your process. I've never really thought about it that way. So I love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think core values, I have so many clients who kind of think they're cheesy when I first meet them. Just the very words just make them cringe almost, that they're just
You
hokey
picture like happiness, power, like one word type of things.
Yeah, and like everybody's kind of sound the same, and it's just their words. And so I actually agree with that in the way that many, or perhaps most, companies implement them. And the way that you get them out of the cheese and out of the things that don't even mean anything is by infusing them intentionally into how you operate your business on the day-to-day. And so the only way that you can do that is if you actually know how things happen on the day-to-day. And so that's all about getting clear on your processes and making sure that the same things are happening each and every time. Now, some people you can kind of get away with this for a while off of just having really awesome people that just embody your core values. And so that's great. And so until that person leaves, you're set. But if that person leaves who's working with your clients or your customers and they embody your core values, now you're kind of starting back at square one. So you have to start, intentionally map out your process, injecting those core values into it.
Yeah, and I love that you talk about that, because a lot of times, it could be just a poster on the wall or something that no one really follows. So talk about, what would be an example of a core value of a company you worked with, and then how is infused into some process? Because if someone's using it, it's automatically they're experiencing it and they're living it. So what's an example that you can give us that, okay, they had this core value and this was the process that was infused in?
Well, I can give you a really simple one. So one of my clients is a home health care group. And so they send people into people's homes and take care of them. And one of their core values was caring, which could be totally just one of those words on the wall because you don't really know. And so as we were reverse engineering their processes and kind of trying to come up with ways to inject caring into the process really intentionally, one of the ways we came up with was having a note that you could leave with the family when you would leave, and you would just leave some sort of caring note that let the person know that, you know, you were thinking about them, or just left them with something special. And that's not hard, and it's not, you know, complicated, but it is a process, and it's something that they weren't doing before. And now that is happening every time.
Yeah. I love that. Because we could look at our, whatever the core values are. And I bet there's companies you work with, other companies you work with that don't have any core values. And they're like, well, do you help figure that out with them? Which is super valuable too. Like they thought they were just hiring to get those stuff out of your plate. Like, no. We're going to actually make sure we get your core values out.
Absolutely. Well, it's either they don't have them, or they have like 20 of them. And which is almost worse than having none, because when you have 20, they're not really your core values, because you can't possibly focus on that many things. And so just having a handful of things that really make you different, make you unique as a company. And it tends to be reflective of, you know, some of the people in your company, who those people are and what they bring and what makes them special. But if we can distill those out, and we do help our clients distill out what their core values are if they don't have any, and then really intentionally building those in, not only into the process itself, but into how you're training your team on how to do those things as well.
Now, I'm curious, when you do that process, are you thinking of their core values as you're writing the process, or do you kind of write the processes and then you're like, how do we plug in the core values after?
Yeah, so we are mindfully, so my team, we're always keeping them on the page as we're documenting, or as we're coming up with the process, but we always circle back to make sure, okay, did we, you know, and not every process is going to have every core value, that's fine. But if you're at least thinking about it, and you're taking a moment when you're drafting your processes, or when you're coming up with them, to say, okay, are we embodying this? So first of all, that has to be a yes. Every single process, your 4 or 5 core values that you have should be embodied, or at least should not be violated by your process. So if there's something that's violating one of your core values, you need to stop and fix right away. Yeah. But then second, are there opportunities in this process to just like kick it up a notch, to just make it a little bit more so that your clients are just going to feel that really palpably? I mean, that's when you talk about these people in the world, these businesses in the world that are the best in the brand of you know, customer service, things like Zappos. The things that they do aren't accidental. The experience that people are having on the other side of that phone call, well, it's because they put in place standards or policies or processes to make sure that happens every single time. Yeah. So just looking for those opportunities. Yeah.
I think you have like
I'm excited about these things.
I think you have a trademark on your hand that I want you to put on your website, which is like process infused core values or something.
Ooh, I like it.
Because most people, you know, and the tagline is something like, the only way you can actually get your team to live your core values is to have Tamara's process infused core values, or maybe I'm doing the reverse, core values infused process, whatever way it works.
Way,
but
it sounds fabulous.
But I feel like it's really fundamental, and everyone wants their team and their company living. I mean, they want the stuff off their plate and they want the process, but they also want their team and company living their core values.
Well, I find that when you really boil it down to what keeps at least the CEOs that I work with up at night, it's that fear that their clients are not getting the experience that they would give if they were there. Or perhaps even the fear that their employees are not getting the experience that if they were managing them directly, that they would want them to have. And so when you can kind of go through and make sure, okay, so let's talk about that. Like my management processes, are my business's management processes in alignment with our core values? Are my employees, are my people that are talking direct line with my customers, are they getting the kind of treatment and the kind of experience that I would want them to have? And I mean, hopefully you hire good managers, but everybody has room to grow and
Yeah.
room to learn. And so being intentional about baking those things in is super important.
Yeah. They have to be, because like if you in your process, if you leave a handwritten note, it's like it's in the process. So that's just what you do. And even if someone's caring, you may not think to do that if it's not in the process, right? So it's super important. So thanks for sharing that example. And let's talk a little about the home healthcare provider, because they had to do a lot of pivoting. I mean, every business, it doesn't matter what you're in, you have to revamp things. You have to revamp your systems, your orientation, everything. So talk about some of the ways you were able to help the home health provider in this, in what's going on.
Sure. Well, to start, they did not have core values to start. However, they had a very strong culture because, as I said, they had great people. They'd hired great people who were ambassadors of what they wanted their culture to be and what their core values were deep down. And so distilling those out and really defining those really wasn't too hard because it was very clear, like, these are the things that we embody. So that was a big piece of the foundation, but we've done a lot of different things. Most recently, their hiring process obviously was affected by COVID. So they used to have, 20 to 30 interviews in the office, people coming in to become caregivers every single week, and coming in and filling out their little handwritten application and turning it in and going through that whole thing. Well, obviously that couldn't continue. And thankfully, just before that, we had implemented an entire new recruiting and hiring process and a new caregiver onboarding and training process. So everything from the very first time that a caregiver applies all the way through when they get trained, which does have to be done hands-on, face-to-face because of the nature of the work. But we revamped all of that. So we moved all of the application things online. We made it so that the team who was looking at all of the applications was doing it in a collaborative and systematic way using software. So everybody can see when things are scheduled. Everyone can see what status the caregiver is in terms of their hiring process. Have they turned in all their documents? Have they done all these things? These were things that they were doing manually. So this is a wonderful, successful company, but they were using so many steps and manual, checks and rechecks and checking on each other. It was just wasting a ton of time.
Yeah.
So saving that has saved their sanity. It's also obviously made them a lot safer as not having so many people that they're in contact with. So we revamped, as I said, their training program as well. So we helped them make sure that their training program was aligned to their core values as well. So teaching those explicitly, so telling those caregivers, here are our core values. Here is how that looks when you're at the home with our clients, and here's how you can embody those things. And then evaluating them not only on the skills that they need to demonstrate, but on the core values and whether or not they seem to be in alignment, which you can't always tell 100% during that hiring on onboarding process. But if you're intentional about how you're looking for those things, you'll at least catch more than you would if you weren't.
Totally. And then there was another company, a sign manufacturing company. What did they need from you originally?
Yeah, so for them, it was similar actually. So a lot of manual processes, a lot of communication through email and just popping your head in or quick phone call. When you're constantly checking statuses of things to see where things are, that is a sign that there's a system that's broken. Because ideally, you should know where things are in your business. You should know the status of all of your projects or all of your widgets or whatever you do. And so for them, it was really just a matter of like, let's eliminate all of those check-ins. Let's eliminate the need to have any paper things. And we moved their entire operations from papers, whiteboards, and check-in, pop-in meetings, completely digital, created a business playbook essentially for how to operate the business. And the owner was able to pretty much remove herself from the business. She just is able to kind of oversee what's going on and make sure that it's all going to pass, but somebody else has completely taken over her role. So it's been pretty life-changing for her.
So Tamara, talk about that for a second. So you mentioned that's a sign your systems are broken. Okay.
Yeah.
I won't kind of pigeonhole you into 3, 5, 7, 10, but like, what are a few signs? So one is you're checking on something constantly. it means you don't have a system for it. There should be some system where someone checks it and you can see it and everyone can view it. What's another sign that common sign that you see that someone's systems are broken?
So this might be controversial.
I like controversial. It's fine.
It's probably not. If you're emailing internally, I find that most companies can completely eliminate their internal emails. You can't get away from it with your clients, but completely, or with outside people. But with internally, there are so many wonderful systems that can consolidate communication and make it contextual in whatever you're working on. It just saves so much time. So my dream is someday all businesses are no longer using email to communicate internally.
So what are some of the tools you like?
We love Monday.com. We love
Mondays. What is it? Smartsheet?
Smartsheet. Yeah. Project management. Just project management tools are great for this. We use Slack.
When do you see a use case someone should use Slack over Monday or Monday over Slack or both?
I think you need both in most cases, because Slack is going to be more about the chit chat or the specific context-based conversations that need to be happening just ongoing throughout the day. Whereas something more like a project management tool, you're going to be working on a specific project workflow.
Got it. So if you're checking on something, it's a sign.
Correct.
You're emailing internally, it's a sign. Internally. What else is a sign that systems are broken?
The crazy shared spreadsheets, if you got them. I would say also just any time where the owner or the CEO feels like they have to constantly play referee. So if you're, as the CEO, feeling like you need to referee and make every decision, that means that it doesn't seem like a process issue, but there's actually a structural problem in terms of roles and responsibilities in the organization. And so that needs to actually get addressed first, of who owns what and who's accountable for what in your business. But then there needs to be a process by which you're able to communicate how things are going, because the reason a lot of times that CEO can't let go is because they can't see what's going on. They're fearful, or they may be in best intentions, like they just want to give the answer to somebody who's sitting in front of them and help them, but actually then that's just continuing the problem. So if you can get your business structure set up in a way where you can put responsibility and trust on your team to make good decisions, and that they are clear on what they own and what they're accountable for, then you can really start to let go of those things. And, if something goes wrong, it goes wrong. Like those things are going to happen. But if you have visibility in general into what's happening in your business, you're going to not feel that pressure quite as much.
Yeah. And, a lot of people call you, they're like, the CEO wants to take stuff off their plate. They feel like they're overwhelmed. What's something that the CEOs push back on that's hard for them to let go? Is there something in particular that you kind of have to, like a kid holding candy, like you got to pry it away from them? Like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. You can't do this. But is there something like that you see a trend?
It tends to be, well, and there's probably other things, but the two things that pop into my mind right away, one of them is things with client issues. So if there's client issues, client drama,
they want to jump in.
So those things, which I get it to some extent, but at some point you can't do that forever. So those kinds of things. And then I would say the other thing is, a lot of times the CEO started out doing a piece of the job or doing a piece of the business, and they really loved it. They really, and maybe they do still love it, or they have a passion for it. Yeah. And
like maybe the sign manufacturer was like a graphic designer or something.
Totally.
So they're like, I still like doing this.
I still like to do it, or I just want to have, I want to have the last say. And I think that you can do that for a time, but hopefully your business is growing and scaling. You have to start putting in the structures where you're not you're not the bottleneck anymore. And it's to some degree it's a personal preference, but for the most part, I would say most CEOs do need to work their way out of those specialized tasks.
Yeah. What's a process you can remember? Like, because I could totally see that there's a client issue, there's client drama, the CEO wants to step in. What's something that you would recommend putting in place so that they don't do that or they're forced not to do it?
Well, so let's go back to our core values conversation. So if your frontline employees or your employees that are working directly with clients are 100% clear on your core values, and they have standards or they have policies on how to handle those. And I'm not talking about making them a robot, by the way. When I talked about Zappos policy, and I don't know if this is still their policy, but like one of their policies was you could spend up to X dollars to resolve an issue, or there's no cap on how long you can talk to someone on a phone call. Like those things send a really strong message to say, I'm not saying that everyone should do that, but that sends a strong message of here's how we handle things here. So if your team is super clear on here's how we handle things here, then you can trust that they're doing it. Now, the other side of that is you need to be evaluating that they are in fact doing those things. So again, another process. This comes back to how you're evaluating your employees and how you're coaching them and how you're intentionally making sure that they're developing as professionals. But you have to put in good people in place, be clear about what you expect from them, measure it and evaluate it, and then you can start to let those things go.
Thank you. And Tamara, the tools wise, people love nifty tools, software, whatever. I'm curious if you have any secret weapons that, like, maybe when you talk to a client, they're like, oh, I've never heard of Slack. I mean, I don't know what are some, secret tools in your toolbox that
secret tools.
Maybe they aren't secret, but like to some business owners, maybe they've never heard of them. To you, that's normal. Like you just like, oh yeah, Monday. And be like, I don't know what Monday is. Are there any interesting tools or software that you want to give a shout out to or recommend?
You know what one of my favorite random softwares is this one called Text Expander.
It's my favorite of all time.
Oh my gosh, isn't it amazing?
Yes.
It's so simple and it's not flashy. And maybe that's why, maybe everybody knows about it. I don't know.
No,
but anyway,
people
Text
don't.
Expander is amazing because here's what you can do. You can make a template for any piece of text you want. And then the best part is you can put in blanks for where you want to add in custom information. So if you have an email that you send out again and again and again and again, it's not just like you copy your template out of your Google Doc and paste it in. You can just type in like two letters or whatever little keyword you come up with, and bloop, it goes right in there, and you just fill it in. Saves so much time. And not just email, you can put the text anywhere. The
desktop app. Yeah. And it minimizes errors, like you said, because if you have a blank and there's different, let's say you're quoting a price. Well, you don't have that in the you don't have that in there as the price. You could have to fill that in. So it's going to maybe be different every time. So I feel like, people say to me, Tamara's like, you should get stock in that company, because I tell everyone. And I go, and by the way, it's like $4 a month or something. I forgot what it is. It's something crazy cheap. It's like $30 for the year or something like that. So
it's great.
Yeah, totally.
Because we waste a lot of time writing emails and writing things that we've written a million times. And this can be a really good hack too, just for any of your team too. You can actually share templates with your team. So if you have multiple people on your Text Expander account and you have like scripts or things you want to share, you could share those. So it's pretty cool.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so when I mentioned the front of the interview, educators turned entrepreneur, what's an example of that?
So I have a couple of clients right now that are, they kind of came from schools. So they started out working in schools with kids, and a lot of times did not set out to be an entrepreneur. They didn't leave schools or leave classrooms to go start a business, but they tried to solve a problem. And so, It's a problem either for teachers, a problem for kids, just problems that we know are out there. And my goodness, just took off. And now all of a sudden they've got this business that's doing amazing. And I really find that these types of people seem to have a really good handle on what it looks like to lead and to care for a team and to manage them in a way that people really want to go along with you on your journey. They just don't necessarily have the systems and the operations aspect of it. So it's a really nice compliment, because if you already have those skills, if you already know really deeply what you care about, and you know how to talk to people, and you know how to get your team to be on board with you and excited, once you implement the processes, man, it's just like magic.
Yeah.
So that's been a really rewarding group of people to work with.
Yeah. Tamara, so, the CEOs out there, executives out there, teams are out there, where should they start with documenting their process? So what would be the first action step that we leave them with?
Well, I think it can seem really daunting to document your processes when you see, our businesses are so complex and there's so many pieces to it. And so what I would tell someone, if you're doing it yourself and you're like, where do I begin? Start with the roles where you have the most people in that role, or you have the most turnover, or the most potential growth. So meaning there's a lot of people who are going to need to interact with this documentation. Mm-hmm. Start with that, because you're going to get the most bang for your buck on the time that you invest in that. So as you're working out, all right, how should we answer the phone? Just something as simple as that. How should we do a visit to someone's home? What should the flow be? Now, not only have I documented this process for one person, but now that affects 5 people and everybody else who comes after that. So I would say start with those and just don't worry about anything else. Those roles you should do them carefully, because a lot of people are going to interact with that. So what I mean by carefully is you want to write it down. You want to write step by step by step what to do. Then once you get through that role, then I would go to ones where maybe you're most at risk if that one person leaves. So if you have somebody who does your payroll and that's the only person that knows how to do payroll, and if something happens to them, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? For those roles, you can do it so quick and dirty. All you need to have that person do is pull up like a loom.com and record a video, and you're done. Record a video for payroll. Record a video for how to, I don't know, I can't even think of anything else. How to do billing, whatever it is. Don't worry about obsessing of writing those out like a process should be. Doesn't matter. You're making an insurance policy. You're making sure that if something happens, you're okay. Or, oh, by the way, that person can go on vacation. That person can breathe and enjoy their life and not feel like if something happens,
what's that
they're,
no,
I know,
I'm just kidding.
It's a thing. It's a thing that people do, or used to do. So I kind of think about it in that order. It's like, start with the place where you're going to make the most impact to your employees and to your clients. And then second, go to the place where you're maybe most at risk, and just do those quickly. Cool. And don't obsess. Just
That's great.
Let it be messy. Let it be imperfect.
I love it. Everyone check out theprocessmavens.com to learn more. You could check out sweetprocess.com to learn more, the software. And Tamara, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to the Process Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, quick question. Do you want a tool that makes it easy to document processes, procedures, and/or policies for your company so that your employees have all the information they need to be successful at their job? If yes, sign up for a free 14-day trial of Sweet Process. No credit card is required to sign up. Go to sweetprocess.com, sweet like candy, and process like process.com. Go now to sweetprocess.com and sign up for your risk-free 14-day trial.